What can I expect to happen at my asylum interview? Hi, I'm Jim Hacking, immigration lawyer practicing law throughout the United States out of our offices in St. Louis, San Diego, and Washington, D.C. If a foreign national is inside the United States, if that's you, and you fear persecution, if you go back home, and you fear that persecution because of some trait about yourself that you can't change or shouldn't have to change, like your race, your religion, your national origin, your political opinion, or your membership in a particular social group, which means a certain class of people. If you fear persecution, and if that's a credible fear, in other words, if that's a believable fear, then you can make a claim for asylum inside the United States. And so when you apply for asylum, you're going to file a form called an I-589. And on that form, it's going to go over a lot of your basic background information, all of your biographic information, your whole life history, your family history, your where you've lived, that whole history. And then there's a bunch of questions dedicated to figuring out why you fear persecution. An asylum officer's job is to figure out whether your claim is believable, whether they actually believe that you will be persecuted if you go back to your home country. So there have been people that have filed thin or bogus or fake asylum cases, and that makes asylum officers' cases harder. And that means they have to sift through every application that they get and figure out, is this case legit? So what we're going to talk about in today's video is what actually happens at the interview when you go and you meet with the asylum officer. So if you have applied for what's called affirmative asylum, if you are here and you've filed that I-589, at some point in the future, you're going to have an interview. And one thing to keep in mind is that there are a ton of cases in which people applied for asylum back in 2015, 2016, 2017. They still have not had their interview, and here we are in 2024. So for those people, they're most likely going to have to update their case. If they get called in for an interview, they're going to have to scramble to get new evidence, because a lot of things can change in 7 or 8 years. In other words, the case sort of had a certain framework back when you filed. Now it's many years later, and you're going to have to update it. Have things gotten better in your home country? Have things gotten worse? Why have they gotten worse? What about your life here in the United States? Are there things that have happened here in the United States that make it even more problematic for you to go back home? That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. So eventually you're going to get that interview notice. And of course, you're going to be very nervous when you get it. You're going to be meeting with this asylum officer. So they work for the federal government. They won't be in a uniform. They'll be in business attire. And their job is to figure out, like I said, whether or not your fear is credible, whether your fear is believable. So when you go into your interview, you're going to be sworn, and there might be a translator on the phone. You can bring a translator. There'll also be a translator who is listening to the conversation to make sure that your translator is translating things correctly. If English is your native language, then that won't be a problem. But for many, many asylum cases, you're going to have a translator, and you're going to have a translator from the government listening to make sure that everything's done correctly. And so the officer is going to begin by going over your application. They're going to have out their red pen. They're going to go over the whole application to see if there are any corrections that need to be made. They'll count up the corrections. They might do this electronically on the iPad, but you're going to have the opportunity to update your asylum case and to provide any additional background information about the case. And then they're going to get to the meat of the matter. They're going to dig deep into your case, and you have to assume that they already know a lot about your country conditions, that they already have had cases like yours before, that they're already familiar with the way the government works in your country. Now, if you have a country that's sort of not a heavy asylum country, in other words, there haven't been a lot of people, you might have to do a little bit of education, but for the most part, the officers will have done their work, and they're not going to need for you to tell them why things are bad in your home country. They're going to want to focus very quickly on what's the deal with your case, what's the reason why you fear persecution, what persecution have you experienced in the past. That's a really big question. Past persecution is the best indicator of future persecution. So if you're just saying that, oh, I think things will be bad if I go back to my home country, I really like life in America, that's very, very different than if you say, back when I was in Nepal, these are all the horrible things that happened to me. And if I go back, I have every reason to believe that they're going to happen to me again. That's a much stronger asylum case. So the officer is not supposed to be cross-examining you. They're not supposed to be attacking you. It's supposed to be collegial, it's supposed to be a kind conversation where they're just getting facts. Now, different offices take different approaches. Different officers take different approaches. So you might get the nicest officer in the meanest office, or you might get the meanest officer in the nicest office. You just never know who you're going to get. But you just have to be ready to tell your story, to be sincere, to be heartfelt. If you are scared or if you're sad, go ahead and be sad. Go ahead and be scared. This is your moment. You've been waiting all this time for your interview to come up. This is your chance to tell the U.S. government why they should not make you leave the United States, why they should let you stay in the United States, put you on a path to a green card through the asylum process. And so hopefully when you're there, you'll probably be there about 2 or 3 hours. The first hour is sort of just a lot of the busy work that it takes to get the case started, where they're going over the background information. Then the last hour or two is going to be them really digging deeply into your story. They want to hear it all. And so we usually tell people, don't hold back. This is your one chance to tell your whole story. You're basically fighting for your life. You're basically fighting for your right to stay in the United States. The lawyers can help. The lawyers can guide. The lawyers can clarify. But for the most part, you're the star witness. You're on stage, and you're going to have to explain in your own words, through the translator if necessary, why you fear going back home. And so that's the biggest thing, the fear and the persecution. Fear, persecution. The fear is, these are the bad things that are going to happen to me, and the persecution is, I'm sure this is going to happen. I'm going to be tortured. I'm going to be killed. I'm going to be jailed. I'm going to be enslaved. Those are the kinds of things that make a good asylum case. Just saying life's a lot better here in America than it is back home in Mauritania, not so much. So if you are thinking about applying for asylum and were wanting to work with our office, feel free to give us a call, 314-961-8200. You can email us, info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com. You can also, if you're just looking for free information, join us in our Facebook group. It's called Immigrant Home. We have thousands and thousands of members in there who are talking about the immigration process, the asylum process, all of it, all the time for free in Facebook. We have a YouTube channel. If you subscribe to the channel, you will get alerted. If you click the little bell and subscribe, you'll get alerted whenever I make a new video or whenever we go live. So we do a live show 3 or 4 times a week. It's called the Immigration Answer Show. And that's just a show where you can come on and ask me any question that you want. And that usually goes for an hour. If you want to get the text link to the waiting room for the next time I'm going live, you can text the word show to 314-470-3300. And then, of course, you can follow us on TikTok @Immigration Hacking. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next video.